Heidi McKenzie is a Toronto-based ceramic artist and an art journalist. She recently graduated with her MFA in Criticism and Curatorial Studies from the Ontario College of Art and Design in Toronto. Heidi also holds a diploma in craft studio ceramics from Sheridan College, which she got in 2012. And Heidi's sculpture practice deals with issues of race, identity, and belonging. She has exhibited internationally at multiple biennials and art fairs, and last year she participated in NCCA's Material World in Milwaukee as part of the Potter's Council juried exhibition. Heidi comes to clay with 20 years' experience as an arts manager and producer with marketing and communications expertise. She has taught courses in fundraising and strategic planning in the arts at 3 universities in Ontario, Canada. And I had the pleasure to meet Heidi because she participated in Project Network Symposium this past fall at Gulerko International Ceramic Research Center in Skilsgård, Denmark, where I work as the recruitment and programs coordinator. So I'm just so pleased for all of you to hear Heidi. She's a fantastic speaker, and welcome.
Thanks so much, Amanda. And so Amanda, if you're at all interested or have students who are interested in the Project Network program, it's for recent graduates in Denmark, and it's fantastic. Okay, so thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here to offer some insight into how to get your art out of the basement and into the gallery. It's not rocket science, but what I have noticed as I have kind of transitioned into my 3rd, 4th, or 5th career in clay is that a lot of the things that I take as common knowledge because I have been doing them for so long are not things that people necessarily have a common understanding of themselves. In fact, you might have an intuitive understanding of a lot of what I'm talking about, or you might even know cold some of the material we're going to cover this morning, but you might not be taking action on some of these things. So just to give you, I started my presenter. Okay, just to give you a rundown on what we're going to look at this morning, in case any of you want to leave the room. I'm going to look at the basics of the portfolio, a few tips there. Then we're going to move on to goal setting and visioning, and then close with looking at some concrete strategies of how you can realize your goals. I wanted to start with the biggest myth that there is, and I think we as makers, and I think there's a lot of educators in the room, know that in fact it is not true. Definitely we need art. We need really good art. It's really important. Yes, we need luck, we need timing, but in fact, with the proliferation of the World Wide Web, which has come onto the scene since I was first in my graduate school in the mid-90s, it's becoming harder and harder to get your art out there. I wanted to start with kind of in 60 seconds why I'm up here, in addition to what Amanda had mentioned, and a few of the things, my career, my past pre-clay career in one slide. I started working in the classical music industry, managing artists. I have a master's degree in arts administration. I've worked in race relations. I've worked with gay, lesbian, bi, transsexual, South Asian festivals. I've worked at the major festival in Toronto, Harbourfront Centre, arts councils, the Royal Ontario Museum in fundraising. Some of you might recognize that's a picture in the middle of the Gardner Museum, which is a major ceramics museum in Canada. I didn't work there, but I did write the proposal that got the architect the renovation job to make it look the way it does now. I've been in TV broadcasting, producing, and I've been radio producing and sponsorship. And I founded the first African-based choir in Canada. So, I began my journey in clay in the foothills of the Himalayas in India. This presentation is not about me, but I just wanted to give you a little context of where I've come from. Himachal Pradesh, I first really got my hands in clay in boot camp, 6 days a week, 8 to 10 hours a day in 2009, in the spring of 2009. I got back to Canada, realized I couldn't go back to my full-time job, and I was in I had the opportunity to go to school. I went to Sheridan. Les Manning is here. While I was at Sheridan, the summer between years, Les, who was the founder of the Banff Centre for Ceramic Arts in Canada, and is now at Medalta, helped me discover there was a sculptor inside of me. And this is just briefly some of the work that I do. A series that I produced in China when I was there 2 springs ago. And this is a piece that I recently had on exhibit in Denmark. And I'm going to come back to some of the issues in my art, so I'm not going to linger, and we're going to move on. But just to say, 2 days after I get back from NCICA, I'll be installing my first solo show in Toronto at the David Kay Gallery. And I'm pleased to show you, again, very briefly, never before seen art, just photographed the day before I left, that will be going up in the show. So this series is called Reaching, and this series is called Facets, and another one from Reaching. Okay, so we're going to start with the portfolio, getting your house in order, the basics. The components. We're going to look at briefly images, the artist statement, the artist bio, print materials, online presence. Again, it's not rocket science. Images. I cannot stress enough that quality is important. If you are not trained or you're not taking your own photographs, it's really important to find someone who is and who can do that for you. And I imagined today that I would have a lot of emerging, possibly younger artists in the audience. And one of the things that you can do is barter with other people, other students who are professional, studying photography and so on, and work with them, because sometimes it can be expensive to get your shots done well. But an image is worth an awful lot in this industry. So that's why I'm starting with images, and I can't tell you how important that is. It's obviously really important to organize your files. My husband is a documentary filmmaker, and I could fill the 45 minutes with horrible stories of losing files. So minimum double digital existence of your images. 3 is best. And organize them. Have them at your fingertips, know where they are. Back up your digital files. Okay, wait a minute. And create flex portfolios. So you want to have 10 images if you've got 2 minutes to show someone in an elevator on your smartphone at your fingertips. 15 images, 25 images. Have them in PowerPoint, have them in a PDF. Have them on your portable tablet. So important to have that, and keep it updated. Just an example of one of the nice things that happened to me, because I had my images organized, was it took me 5 minutes to apply in 2012 for the Potter's Council calendar when I was a student at Sheridan, and this work made it in. And in fact, this past year, another piece also made it in, and I'm Miss January 2016. Okay, artist statement. I'm going to just take a second to tell you a little bit of an anecdote. I think everybody by now has heard avoid artist speak, avoid garbage, jargon, things that people don't understand. But it really is amazing how clear and direct one really needs to be in the artist statement. Having just studied curatorial practice and writing for galleries and museums, I can tell you that the standard at most national galleries is to write for a grade 8 or 9 level and to exclude any vocabulary or sentence structure that wouldn't be appropriate for that level. When I was writing at CBC Radio, I'm a type A kind of personality. I'm kind of used to doing things to my best and doing well, and I arrived there on the scene, started writing copy for radio, and I had my knuckles wrapped many, many days, and I was really fearing I was going to be fired because even though felt I was writing simply and directly, writing clearly is really, it's an art form unto itself. So just keep that in mind. So with your artist statement, you want to communicate who you are. As I mentioned before, keep it simple. Skip the jargon. This one's important, read it aloud. I mean it, read it aloud. Not only to yourself. This was perhaps the most important lesson I learned. One of my mentors at Sheridan College, Inouye Chang, is from Taiwan, and I can't tell you how helpful it was to know that, in fact, some of the words I felt were extremely accessible are, in fact, not. So give it to someone whose first language is not English to read and see if you have a clear communication flow going. And keep multiple versions. I saw a few eyebrows raised and people surprised to hear me say, keep your portfolio on your smartphone. But keep multiple versions of your artist statement. I must have 25 sitting in my folder, and I label them for when I've used them, and I tell myself how many words. So 50 words, 100 words, 200 words, 250. You're rarely going to get anybody who wants to read down more than 250, but sometimes it is appropriate. And consider your audience. So that's also very important. You're sending an artist statement in to be juried by a professional ceramicist is one thing. You're sending an artist statement to have at a show, in a group show, a little paragraph. That's something yet again. So I'm going to take the time to sort of briefly show you my general artist statement. So clay is inherently of the human body, the sediment of millennia. The medium reinforces the corporeal themes implicit in my studio practice that engages issues of identity and belonging. Through abstract portraiture, I capture humanity, an individual, a culture, or society. This is explored through conceptual and material examination of ways in which clay in its ceramic form conveys static motion. Now, I have to say, when I was preparing for this, I thought, yeah, I could even take that down a notch. Perhaps the word corporeal is a little out there, but then I'm going to say that this one was targeted more for an artist audience or gallery or curator audience. The second paragraph, if I wanted to go on, I'm not going to read it out, but moves on into sort of a discussion of more of the themes, the medium, and what I'm working with. But one of the things that again hit me as I was preparing is I need to rewrite this. Because look at these words: kinetic rhythms, juxtaposition to foundational Euclidean geometry. Well, really, Euclidean geometry is foundational, but people get it. Geometric forms, asymmetry, render abstract representations. You see, the temptation is really high, and I've curated a show with street artists, like graffiti artists. Who do phenomenal work, and then they come and present their art, and they're reading art speak jargon because that's what they feel they have to do, and they alienate everyone around them. So, again, can't stress that enough. Moving on to the artist bio. Ditto everything I just said for the artist statement. It's a good idea to have a short, medium, and long version of your bio at the ready. Think about who your audience is and what you want to convey. We don't need to know how old you are. It's not that important to know what year you were born, and it's important to know where you're from, where you're based. It might be important to have a little bit of your personal history in there. For example, for today, I'm going to show you what I did for today. I mean, it's important for you to know that I have some background in marketing, communications, and so on, to legitimize being here. But think about what you want to be remembered for. So this was the 50 words I was allowed to submit. So I wanted to tell you that I had credentials academically, just to let you know, I do art, and these are the themes, that it's not functional, that it's sculptural, and that, hey, I have exhibited internationally and at NCECA. A longer form, again, I think we're not going to take the time to read that, but just to say, for me, because identity and race are integral to my practice, I thought that it would be important to keep in the 200-word version, and this is the first paragraph of 2 paragraphs, in a 200-word bio, something about the fact that my father's ancestral home is India, and that's where I decided to go to learn ceramics. And then again about my heritage, which is mixed, biracial, Irish Indo-Trinidadian, and then you want to start strutting your stuff. And you want to keep that current. There are things that I strutted 2 years ago that I'm dropping now because there's other things that I think are more important. So, and then in the second paragraph, and it should never really be more than 2 paragraphs, a little bit about some of the shows that I've done, where I've been, and then if there's anything else that's relevant, you can add it in at the end. So, for example, I write for Ceramics Arts magazines, and I think it's important to mention that. In the consider your audience, also consider your tone. Are you speaking in the I? Are you speaking in the third person? Are you speaking as yourself? I think here I was speaking fairly informally, Heidi. If you're applying for a major, let's say, NCECA juried Biennale show, you want to be more formal, you want to use your last name only, and so on. So think about that. I strongly prefer the first name where possible. Okay, print collateral. I know today everybody will say that everything is virtual and we don't need physical things anymore, but the business card is still important. Even if you give it to the person and it only transits through them for, 10 minutes, that 10 minutes they might plug in your phone number in their smartphone or take a minute to Google you, or your website. So still important to have that at the ready. And take them with you when you go out to see art shows. You never know who you're going to run into. Postcards, bookmarks. Today, I still have people hesitate to take a card, and I have cards, and I would encourage you to come up if you're interested in having one of my cards at the end. They hesitate. They're like, oh, I can't take that. It's so expensive. Well, no, it's not. eprintfast.com. 1,000 postcards is regularly $40, and they're often on sale. So you can, that's two-sided, full color. It's not bad. It's not prohibitive anymore, printing costs. Signage. If you're doing a show, consider having good signage. I made a mistake and had signage in my first show done up on Coroplast with my name and my word logo. And all my work looked like metal, and no one knew I was a ceramic artist. So, consider your signage. Photography and signage is really good. I've been noticing that people who do really well with their, in trade shows or fairs, really good photography. Again, consider hiring a designer or getting a friend who knows more about it than you to do it. Okay, so we're moving on to online presence. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I still run into artists who, I don't have my website up. Oh, it's just being updated. Well, I just updated my own website, but I had something up in the interim. Really important. Facebook. A lot of people resist Facebook, but consider just having a professional page. So I actually recently set up a professional page, Heidi McKenzie, ceramic artist, Facebook page, so that now I can separate, if I wanted to tell something personal or anecdotal or completely non-related to ceramics on my personal site, and then just keep my process, people might want to follow, successes, the picture that I'm going to post of this big audience after this on my professional Facebook page. We just talked about website. Blogging. Is it in? Is it out? Is it important? It can be. It depends on how good you are and how much you keep up with it. I started out thinking I was going to be a blogger, and in fact, I'm not. I like to, update my website 2 or 3 times a month with a new story, and it needs to be more than that to get a following. And just another quick side story, last year I was here at NCECA in Milwaukee, and I had dinner with Tony Clennell. How many people have heard of Tony Clennell? Okay, I thought maybe more people. Okay, so Tony is known for his blog. In the course of a dinner, maybe 8 or 10 people who he had no idea who they were came up and said, "I just want to shake your hand." People know him through his blog. You can do that. Anyone can do that. It just takes persistence. And then, of course, there's online retail. That's something to consider. Yumi Horie, Ceramics Monthly Potter of the Year a couple of years ago, is a blazing example of turning online retail into something that really works. People are actually waiting for her kilns to be unloaded so that as soon as they're out, she photographs them, puts them up, and she sells out. So it is possible to build an online retail, and Ayumi Horie, I should have written that down, Ayumi Horie, Horie. Something that's just started happening too, as soon as I reposted or redid my website, I've started getting calls, and I've had about 5 calls in the last month, actually in the last 3 weeks, people trying to sell me their services to make my website even better, so just beware of that. All right, moving on to the latter half of our presentation, vision and goals. And so all that stuff that we've just talked about is nuts and bolts, gotta have it, but what's gonna set you aside from the fray is your vision. And setting and actually taking action to set the goals instead of kind of just letting things happen to you and go along, but being proactive. So where do you want to be? Do you want to be in one local gallery within 3 years? Do you want to have product on consignment in a couple of shops in 5 years? Do you want to have gallery representation coast to coast? Internationally, do you want to be on stage presenting as an emerging artist for NCECA in 2020? So, goal setting. Some tips for goal setting. Identify your heroes. Who do you really admire? I mean, who rocks your world? Who out there in the field do you aspire to be like? Not necessarily even the art that they make, but the way that they are in the world. And with the public, and marketing, and in galleries, et cetera, et cetera. Research about these people. How did they get there? What's their story? You might learn something that you could use or apply to your own life. Network. Don't be afraid to talk to artists that are, more evolved in their careers than you. Keep files, both real and virtual, in terms of possible galleries, because you never know when you're going to have tons of extra time to just go through those files and think, gee, I should call up the gallery owner of such and such a place and just see if I could have a meeting, which is what I actually just did. Paul is here in the room. I wanted to go out to see a show at the Canadian Clay and Glass Gallery, and I have a vision that within, in 5 years, I'd like to be in a group show at the National Gallery of Clay and Glass in Canada. So I asked the curator if I could meet with her to show her where I was now, so that I can check in with her in a couple of years, and we can talk about possibilities. And know who the curators are to watch too. Befriend those curators. So just an example of identifying heroes. This is Susan Collette is one of my heroes, and Canadian artist, and I love her art. I like the way she's, I'm not going to go on and on about Susan, but she started making commercial tiles and making a living doing commercial tiles, and has transitioned over probably about a 20-year span and has arrived. Canada just opened a new culture house in London, England, and
actually, Paula Murray is here as well, was there. I don't know how many ceramic artists were invited to participate. Certainly less than half a dozen. It's a big house, okay. All right, so, where do you aspire to? And like I said, keep files. Okay, all this being said, be realistic. This is my little comic relief. An ex-partner of mine gave this to me in my early 20s because I tend to be a little over-ambitious. So, bullet point where you want to be and by when, and then cut your expectations in half. It's kind of like packing your suitcase. Pull out everything you want and take half, because that's really all you need. But before you're going to get anywhere, you need a plan. And again, like I said, I think one of the key things is that people let things ramble around in their head and don't actually put a plan on paper. And now, as someone who has done strategic planning for arts organizations, I know how important it is to do a strategic plan for an individual artist. So putting pen to paper. A friend of mine, Heidi McKenzie, no relation, who's in Toronto, graduated from Sheridan the year ahead of me. And I remember speaking to her at length after she graduated, and she said, I have a 5-year plan, and it's to get a solo exhibition and to be invited to be in the Canadian Clay and Glass Gallery. Well, 3 years later, she's had 2 solo exhibitions at the Gardner Museum in Toronto and has been a part of a group exhibition at the Canadian Clay and Glass Gallery. It's always nice to be realistic about your goals so you can beat your goals. It's always bad to be over-optimistic and not make your goals. Check in with yourself every 3 months. And, 5 years is a long time. You're going to be revising your goals as you go. But find a format you like. It could just be jotting down bullet points, but keep it somewhere where you can refer back to. I mean, maybe even, low tech, pin it on the Bristol board in your studio. Or you can have a spreadsheet, or you can have, there's all kinds of software out there, Outlook and so on, to do your planning. But don't get discouraged. I have to say, it may seem that I've done fairly well in 6 years, but I have had far more rejection than I've had success or acceptance. So once you have your plan, you need some strategies to realize your plan. And I can't tell you what your strategies will be. I can tell you a few of my own. And you can start extrapolating and thinking about how you can apply them to your own situation. So part of my plan when I got out of school was to try and go to some international residencies. Because I think that's one of the things that can really, you can network with interesting artists. It can also raise your profile. It can also give you the opportunity to have huge creative breakthroughs. And so that's what I did. And I also was able to write a grant and get funding for it. That's one of the things we have available to us in Canada, if you are so fortunate to do so. My current strategy is to focus local. Again, look at your life situation. Everybody has a different life situation. My parents are getting older and, life is short, and I want to be close to them and spend as much time as I can caring for my parents now. And so I pretty much consider myself grounded for the next few years. And there's a lot to do on the local front, let me tell you. So, community engagement is important. You can think about joining a board. You can think about getting on a committee. You can think about, being generous with your time, because what goes around comes around in terms of what you're doing, networking, being seen, being visible. I've already mentioned getting out there, starting to talk to your local curators. You'd be surprised how few artists actually pick up the phone and make that first call. And I would encourage people to pick up the phone and make the call as opposed to just send an email. And a lot of people in work situations ignore emails from people they don't know. And you might be thinking, oh, they really don't want, they've looked at my website now and that's it, they don't like me. Pick up the phone, leave a voicemail. 2 days later, send the email. A week later, pick up the phone, call again. Take risks. I think that speaks for itself. and leverage your assets. So in my case, I worked in media for some time, and I knew I was okay with writing, and I just decided to take the radio production skills and journalism skills to print, and started interviewing some of these artists that were available to me, and then started getting my articles published in Ceramics Monthly. It's a great way to network and meet people and understand where you're going and where you want to be, and figuring out different other people's paths and how they got to where they are. Yours is going to be different, but the more you know about other people whom you aspire to be like, the more, knowledge is power. So last year I reviewed the Invitational Exhibition Biennale, or the Invitational. Okay, getting to the end. Take action. Go to openings. Don't cloister yourself in your studio. Get out there, meet your peers. Don't just go to openings and not talk to people. People are like, here at NCCA, you can just start a conversation looking at a piece of art with anyone, really. And, as you all know this, people will talk to you. It's the same at art openings, and have your cards with you. Introduce yourself to the big fish. Again, don't shy away of the curators, the collectors, the people you know who are buying art in the community. That, 9.9% of the time, 9.9 times out of 10, which is 99% of the time, then people are not going to be insulted or taken aback, or, you're not bothering people. People are interested, and if they're not interested, they'll throw your card out and not think twice about you. But that's okay, at least you've taken a risk. Same thing with asking for the meetings. You can't spend your life doing it, but I don't know, my personal goal is to try to get at least 2 meetings a month. Sometimes I don't make it, but, a meeting a month with someone that is on the path. And that's part of the networking. Okay, I wanted to just talk, give you an example of this notion of being open to possibilities. I was recently asked to give an artist talk, not a business talk, at the Aga Khan Museum, which is the first, I guess it's the international home. Toronto is now the international home of the Ismailis collection, which is the largest collection of Islamic art outside of Victoria and Albert in London. So fantastic facility. I got to give a talk that responding to the show about, 9th century Chinese work and the work that I was doing in China, and talk about contemporary and Tang Dynasty China. And through that opportunity, which by the way I got because I knew someone who worked in the museum, and I called them up and met with them and had lunch, and 6 months later and told them I was going to China, and when I came back they wanted to know, well, what did you learn, what's going on? And that parlayed into a retail opportunity at the museum. They're selling my sculptures and my emerging functional line, and I'm reviewing their current show for Ceramics Monthly. So again, be open to possibilities. So to recap, get your house in order, that all-important portfolio. I'm sure 80% of the people in this room are thinking, oh man, there's a part of it that's not together. Okay, many parts maybe. Really think about your vision. As someone who's bounced around to 15 or 20 jobs in 20 years, I have to tell you, that was a hard lesson for me to learn, is to really think about where you want to go and set those goals. And then really make a plan. Don't just talk to a friend about it and think, okay, I have a plan. Write it down. Choose your strategies. And even if it's one strategy that you think you want to do in 6 months, do it. And then there's always a loop. Reassess, review, and revise. So that's what I had to say. And I would love to have some discussion. We have a few minutes. And take questions. So if you have a story to share or your advice, that's fair game. Thank you. Okay, so I guess I saw your hand first, so go ahead. I'll repeat the question. Okay, so the question was, what about my photographs? Do they come into my studio, or do I take the work elsewhere? I actually have a piece of framing matting on a little table in my basement and a single light source, and I took a course in photography and I do it myself. But there are invariably photographers you can take your art to and pay them by the hour, and usually you'll find someone in your community who specializes in art and possibly specializes in ceramics to photograph. I know in Toronto there's someone who does that for $75 an hour, and you can get a huge amount done in an hour or an hour and a half. Oh, please leave it on the table. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to take one from over here.
How do you balance making your work and doing all of this networking? I have this fear that I'll land some big fish and then not have the work to
Right. That's a really important question. How do you balance all that networking and the work having, yeah. This person says they have the fear of landing a big fish or a big commission and not having the work to produce. Oh, I didn't realize there was a mic, sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay, we'll come to you guys next. How do you land that? Well, how do you balance that? It's a huge struggle. I started reading about life balance proportions that artists, I think, is it Ceramics Monthly when they do, they tell you. I mean, some artists are spending as much as 40% of their time in the hustle. So it's up to you. Can we have a question at the mic?
Sure. So I related to a lot of what you were saying about doing all these different things, as well as being a potter. I'm a poet, I'm a photographer. I do a whole bunch of other stuff besides that. I'm wondering what your advice is on having multiple online presences, because I've been trying to work on my website and I'm trying to decide if I should always tell everybody about everything I do, or if that's really overwhelming because I do a whole lot of stuff,
Yeah.
or if I should have different things, or if that's confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a definitive answer. One of the reasons I redid my website is because I was I felt that my presence was too scattered, and people whom I had sent the website out to, and, they would look at me and say, oh, you're that person who, reviews articles, and didn't see me as an artist. So I think it might be a good idea to have multiple places. I know that when I get my functional line off the ground, I'm going to have a separate website for it and a separate identity. So that's my advice.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, next.
Hello. Thank you for the talk. Question, maybe two. As far as the domain name goes for your website, do you need it to say whatever your name is or whatever the company is, .com, or would you go through, in your experience?
In my experience, if it's not going to, well, that's two questions. Does it need to be your name? Ideally.
Oh, no. I just meant through the site, because sometimes like a Big Daddy, right? It says Big Daddy, it doesn't say whatever your site is .com. Like you don't outright own it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
No, I don't. Tell me again.
Does anybody else? Can anybody else help me out?
There are free websites where their name is before your name.
Oh, right, like, okay, yeah.
Don't do what?
So maybe it's normally like $10.
Just buy it yourself?
Yeah,
And as she said, get somebody else to do it for you if you can, right?
right. If you can buy your domain name, buy it. But if your name is part of it, like WordPress, Heidi McKenzie, ceramicartist.com, it's a mouthful, but it's still reachable by Google like that, right? With your name in it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to take, if you want, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I guess from this talk, I'm realizing I'm having some difficulty trying to market myself as well.
Yes.
And I've started taking some marketing classes to sort of learn about marketing, because I think it's a really important part of this. I do ceramic objects. I also do performance. I also do installation. I also work with ceramic objects that I find at the thrift store and do installations with that. So ceramics for me is a much larger playground than making objects and producing them and displaying them. So I guess it's a hard thing for me to sort of frame or try and explain to people. And my website I've started to develop, but I guess it's hard for me to sort of figure out how to
Okay.
do these things.
I'm hearing you, I think, and there's a lot of people in line. So, but just to say, I met some artists in a similar situation to you when I was in Denmark at Will You Go. And one of the things I saw, the most successful woman who, interned with Claire Toime and so on and so forth, and does performance art and does this and does that, is to get involved in projects that organizations are running, and then the organization is doing the marketing of you as part of their event or as part of what they're up to, and you become buoyed along. Well, like what at the Aga Khan Museum, that was, they did the marketing piece for me largely.
Okay.
That's a strategy.
Yep. No,
One
that's
to try.
definitely. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, I'm a student at a university, and I was wondering what would be a reasonable goal to kind of start with? Because I'm a freshman and I have a really hard time already balancing classes and sleep and work outside of class and all that kind of stuff. And so what do you think would be a reasonable start for where I am right now? I mean, I guess that's personal to everyone.
It is personal. It's hard to answer, but, there's always one or two people in every class that are just, that step ahead. And if you want to be the person who's the step ahead, I mean, what I did was, I had never done an installation before, and I applied to an emerging artist show with an installation idea while I was in school, and I got it. So, just, again, taking risks.
Yeah, taking
Just
risks.
trying to do that extra thing that's not going to kill you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah.
I was looking for my name as a domain name, and a woman already has that who sells
Yeah.
throw pillows with birds
Oh,
on it and
oh, no.
kind of kitschy stuff.
Yep.
I'm wondering, is there any way I could get that domain from her or optimize the search engine to where I am not confused with her as a maker?
I
as
don't
an
know if
online
anybody else
presence?
has an answer to that. I mean, my yes, you could, yeah, exactly. Your name and something else, or you could be really clever, like choose a clever name. I've know some people in Toronto who are like, claygirl.com, and that's not bad. Like if you can really choose something clever that people will remember, oh, that's you, that's another option.
Hi, I just want to say real quick, thank you so much for coming and giving this talk. My question is about organization. If you have any quick tips about how to start organizing those files. You have especially all of the images. Sometimes it's different sizes for this show and that show, but a portfolio, JPEG, PDFs,
Right.
and such.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. And this will be, I think, the last question because we're at almost 11. I'm sorry. I can
Mine
talk to you
is
after.
quick.
Oh, well, I have to answer her. So, when you're working on your files, if you're doing them yourself, I just did all the photos for my upcoming show before my basement gets ripped apart. And I save them in 3 file sizes at that time. I know what DPI size is the best for Facebook, 550 DPI. And so save them in formats that are, very high resolution because you can always come down for high and then down to your web and social media. And then in terms of organizing on your disks, you can try the calendar method. I do bodies of work. So I label the bodies of work. So if my ring series, I might continue to do more ring series work in the future. I know I started it 3 or 4 years ago, but so every time I add to that, that goes in that body of work. For me, I prefer body of work. I think I have to wrap it up. I'm going to be around for a few minutes outside because the next speaker is coming in. So thank you very much for coming. And again, cards at the front.